The views shared in this episode represent Kelli and Kendra, not our mamas, partners, church, job, or sponsors.
Hey y'all, it's Kelli. This episode is part 2 of our conversation with Dr. Tahirah Walker, the author of Rhetoric, Intersectionality, and Black Women in Pittsburgh. In this second half, we're honoring the lineages of Black women writing love letters to us via their sacrifices. We're picking up our discussion on rhetorical intersectionality, and we're exploring the importance of protecting and honoring the legacy of Black women doing the labor to build institutions. Enjoy.
Rhetorical intersectionality.
Rhetorical intersectionality. I want you to explain that, but I do. What was your mom's name, if I may ask?
So her birth name was Carolyn, and then she took the name of Aisha when she became Muslim. So either
Mama
works.
Aisha, spirit was so heavy for me as you were telling that story. So I just want to welcome her energy into this space. I think our mothers probably thought, whatever I need to do to give my child an education, because for their generation, education for them felt open opportunities, right? My mother was also working class, worked at the airlines for 28 years, but was so strategic in putting me in every educational program she could. I was at UC Berkeley in, what was it, Mensa for the smart people. I'm not good at math, but my mom was like, you going to that program. Yes, going to the white school for summer school. And I was like one of the only Black kids, and I'm trying to figure out what in the world is happening here.
What is she doing?
And then to end up at prep school, and then at NYU, and then to UCLA, all because she made a choice that this is what she wanted her children to experience as a Black woman with no resources. She was going to figure out a way to make that happen. So just to honor both living and transition ancestors for the sacrifice, because education also creates a distance. It creates a difference that impacts communities and families in a way that I don't think she even realized, because I never went back to Oakland. I've had a trajectory based on my education that she could not have even imagined. So thank you for bringing your mama into the space.
Yeah. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. And I will just say quickly, we didn't move for a school. I didn't get sent to another school, but we lived where we lived for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, I've always grown up in these communities because me and my brother had a very different experience than all my other friends and stuff at church and family members. So I can relate as well in my own way.
Yeah.
I think
Dr. Walker, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I will say, like I said, I do have family members who, anytime something is needed, will stop an entire conversation and go into the Father God, we just thank you. So, it does come out in me sometimes. That is very much there. I want to tell you one quick thing before rhetorical intersectionality.
Please.
So yesterday, I was working on a tenure packet. I am early for tenure, but I have been asked to do different leadership roles here. And so I said, I would love to continue, and yet I am acutely aware, again, of being the only person who looks like me here, and people's zeal and willingness to remove Black women from spaces that they think should be their own is something that I'm concerned about. And so I just, had asked, like, hey, so what about my tenure, And I got a letter a couple of weeks ago from the provost saying that they were able to put me up for it right now. Caveat being, but can you have a dossier ready by November 1st? And I was just like, that's like 2 weeks, And, but did I say no? Absolutely not. I said, yeah, sure. Yeah, we're going to figure something out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday, I thankfully for some reason did not find myself completely up against the wall, trying to get it done. But I was finishing it, and I had a realization. It was something I knew was happening, but I hadn't put it all together yet. Yesterday was also what would have been my grandmother's 100th birthday. She would have been 100. And so she was very much on my mind. How you said Aisha entered the space. Well, yeah, Bernice had entered that space too. And I was thinking, like, oh my gosh, I felt so big and small at the same time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept tracing, I was like, so the connection is my grandmother also worked for an airline and a hotel. And my aunt had just told me the story about when she was ready to go to college, her father and her mother were divorced. And her dad told her mom, my grandmother, oh, you probably have to take out a loan, for her to go to college. And my aunt said, I just remember thinking, how is my mother going to get a loan? She's over here living in the projects. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And my grandmother cashed out some stocks that she had from working that job and said, okay, that'll get you through at least 2 years. We'll figure it out. My aunt was just realizing, like, my aunt is 75, I think she is, just realizing what a sacrifice that was for her to, do that so that she could go to college. And then here I am on her 100th birthday telling people why they should give me tenure, right? While my grandmother, who had like a fifth grade education, had, cashed out what was likely her retirement, her nest egg, to send her daughter to college. None of that it is tiny to me. My grandmother was a great migration person. She left Virginia for Newark, had been, raised in a household of sharecroppers. And I know at least her father's parents were enslaved, right? Like it's not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, what brings me around to thinking about rhetorical intersectionality is indeed a lineage, right? And is indeed a sense that, Black women have been writing these sort of love letters to the future in us for a very long
Mm-hmm.
time. Very, very long, and wondering, like, what does that look like? What are the contours and features of it? I didn't want to take this back to womanism, right? I didn't want to walk past them like the color purple in a field and not notice. And
Yes.
we do that so much. We do that,
Yeah.
like, Black women are doing these everyday lives that are actual marvels,
Yes.
like actual miracles. And
Mm-hmm.
and people just act like it's normal, or if they do want to notice it, put terms on it that don't quite get into the depth of the work and artistry that go into it. And so I wanted to do that. I realized intersectionality as a theory had been, co-opted. I like to say people were treating it like hot sauce, or like, just put that on everything and you'll get it published. And I would be like, is
Where's
there
the
really
rigor?
right? Where is it? I would be like, we're talking intersectionality, and I don't have an inter or a section or a ality. It's none of it is here. Where is it?
Yeah.
And so I did have in me the idea that we were going to get back to the roots, right?
Yeah.
What I know that people who are familiar with it as a theory are somewhat familiar with the fact that this is Kimberly Williams Crenshaw articulating it. I didn't quite know if they understood that she was looking at it from a legal perspective first. And so, I wanted to highlight that, and I wanted to bring back the three notions that she had of how it works in the first place. So she talks about structural, representational, and political intersectionalities. And she has this, really deep thought about, how we experience all three of those and how they are
Yeah.
different. And something that I, have been thinking about as a scholar looking at rhetoric was a lot of these same, sort of phenomena were things that I would see in how rhetorical theory works, where like, even like one of the fundamental concepts of rhetoric being a good man speaking well.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Are you a Black woman in middle management looking to elevate your leadership skills in a safe space? Then listen up, because I have something special just for you. Join a coaching group of like-minded women focusing on emotional intelligence, management skills, and leading in white spaces. In our group coaching sessions, you'll gain leadership skills, tools, and strategies. Plus, you'll gain a powerful network of sisters who understand your journey. No more leaning alone. Ready to take the next step? Visit www.iamkelly to learn more and join a cohort. Let's lead together.
Yeah.
Like, wait on me. And I was just like, so funny. We look at the modern civil rights movement. Men, just men, and there's the impulse to just say, oh, well, we mean humankind. But the question I had to ask myself is it okay to say that and pretend that gender doesn't matter? And I did not feel that was the case. So I wanted to see, what I was curious about Blackness and womanhood as a condition of a rhetorical space. And then it just clicked for me, and I was like, this is classic stuff, right? This is when and where I enter. This is Sojourner Truth, right? Like, this is Phyllis Wheatley. This is what we have been saying for as long as we have been part of, at least in the United States, public discourse.
Yeah.
And you think about somebody like Phyllis Wheatley, honey, she was writing to George Washington and telling him what the government should look like. She was not scared, not afraid. She felt very much like she had a position and a place in the way that we conceptualize public discourse. So, the question I started to ask is like, what does it look like when there is an attempt to take that away from us? And the name that I had for that was a rhetorical intersectionality. So that, that is a thing that happens when, there's an audacity to talk about Black women without us being there. Talk about what we need without us being part of how that's conceptualized. And yet again and again and again, we reclaim that for ourselves. Feminism itself is a space where a lot of rhetorical intersectionality has happened. A lot of removing of Black women and what we have asked for, Black and brown women. Let me be more expansive on that. Somebody like Dolores Huerta, who you don't have feminism without her farm workers' rights movement.
Yep.
And yet the erasure is so.
We still talk about Cesar. Yes.
Right. Exactly. And so, I wanted to, just kind of like bring a conversation back around to that. The big, I think, inspirations for me were being in graduate school and having like entire syllabi with 0 women of color on there, right? Like even in a gender class, it was like, okay, we're going to start with Simone de Beauvoir. And I was just like, really? That's amazing. Like, not one, not even one. And so I felt like there's no way I'm finishing this program without doing a reading that honors these women. The other inspiration for it was, this was around the time that Auntie Maxine called the transportation secretary, I think it was the transportation secretary, to a hearing on Capitol Hill, right? And remember, he like started, talking about
Yeah.
something that wasn't part of her question, right? And she was just like, reclaiming my time.
Reclaiming my
Yeah.
time.
And it was, this became sort of a rallying cry, right, for Black women in many different spaces. But much like intersectionality, it was built in a structural system, right? So like
Yeah.
there is a way in Congress that you get to have the floor. There is a way that the speaking order works.
Yeah.
And here is this man thinking that it's okay to
To be
deprive
out of
her
order.
of that.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I was just like, that's it. That's a rhetorical intersectionality. It's the need for you to say, oh, no, 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 you are on my time. I'm the representative here, and reclaim that. Yeah.
You know what that reminds me of, Kelly? Is Aunt Cherry arguing with people, not arguing, but letting people know what time it is at church meetings. So, Dr. Walker, for your edification, Cherry Wiley was my great aunt who lived in Brooklyn, right across the street, right now, maybe 10 minutes from me. But she went to
Sure.
Brown Memorial Baptist Church, was the church directly across the street from my apartment, which I avoided like the plague for years. Even though like that was my aunt, I would walk past and she'd be like, where you going? And I was like, I'm going over here. I'm going to go to this church. Your pastor allow you to go to church without stockings? That whole thing.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, actually right around 9/11, I decided to go to her church. And then I started hanging out with 70 and 80-something-year-old Black ladies, my aunt and all her friends. But my aunt used to give men, like our pastor and everybody, hell in church because everything with her was about decency and order. Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes.
And she would, and I used to be like, why do we care about this like European framework? But I'm listening to you talk about Auntie Maxine and the Reclaiming My Time, and I'm making the connection point with her is like, we always talk about how a lot of Black women, the only place where they had any sort of authority was in the Black church. So, but my aunt took that stuff very seriously, and she'd be like, Pastor, I love you, but you're wrong. We have to follow the bylaws and the procedures and da-da-da-da-da. So I'm sorry, all that connection it all just came crashing down on me as you were talking.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I wrote originally about in my dissertation, I didn't want to pull this into the publication, but it was very much a part of what I was experiencing. So, my husband, again, grew up in a really close-knit church. And I do go, right? One of the things that I experienced when I would be there was there's like this deep reading of scripture. And there are two places where the women in that church would come to life that I had, observed. One of them was in the reading of the book of Esther. Yeah. We had to talk about
that's their jam.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We had to talk about a man wanting to parade his wife around, and how Queen Vashti was like, "No, I ain't finna come over there." And then what the role of Esther really is. Got deep into that. There's another scripture. I don't know where it is. Y'all have to help me out with this one, but it's a letter that I think must be written by Paul, saying, "Let the women learn in silence." Does that ring a bell for you? Yeah, somewhere in there.
That's not.
Listen, these women were like, and he wasn't talking to us. Yeah, no, we are not gonna be in silence in here. And
that's funny.
Got deep into this like exegetical, understanding of why he did that, what was going on in that whatever city he was writing to at the time, and leaving women alone, like so much exploration of what that really meant. But I tell you what it didn't mean. It did not mean for them to be quiet. Oh no. Yeah. So yeah, I do think it not only has the Black church, and we can absolutely recognize that that's not a monolith, right? But not only has that been a space for order and spiritual freedom and uplift for Black women, it has also been one of the most important places where Black women have built political power.
Yeah.
They have done that, right? And we see that also across other spiritual traditions. And so, yeah, I do think, the ideas of freedom and that being a right given by the creator kind of mean for us in those spaces. And yeah, we got to have it just so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it means you have to wear a skirt. Because, I never quite understood. It's just like, can't wear pants? What do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I was Baptist. We ain't go through that, thank the Lord. Kelly come from them kind of churches that was more strict.
My mom, we always wore pants, so.
Yeah, y'all was rebels. So speaking of freedom, I want to take a little bit of host license to say, I think the thing that strikes me most about Dr. Walker is like, on a personal level, we are just now really starting to get acquainted, but we've been following each other for years. I remember her writing an article when she was leaving Pitt, and I left Point Park, and I wrote an article, and then I learned, and then and then I left Point Park and went to Duolingo, and then she came to Point Park, and then I started reading her work, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like our work is kind of talking to each other, and I actually, I referenced the Gender Equity Report, and then I started a project with actually Dr. Tate and Dr. Matthew called the Home Place Project about women of color and the ideas of safety, kind of in Pittsburgh. So similar, but just thinking about the connection between our work, and I'm thinking about, speaking of freedom, my dissertation, Freedom Dreams, and about how Black women cultural workers, in the Hill District use storytelling and art and all these things to make spaces a place of freedom dreaming. And so your concept of rhetorical intersectionality really feels like a kindred act, even though I never heard of it until I started reading your book. So how do you see, because we could talk about the book for days, but I want people to actually read it. And I know it's an academic text and it's costly, but I am believing God that it's about to be mass market and it's going to be more accessible to people over time. But how do you see Black women in Pittsburgh right now dreaming and demanding something new into being?
Wow. There are so many different ways. I do think that freedom dreaming was very much on my mind in writing this, and so I'm grateful to you for that work. I also was thinking of a woman named Dr. Christina Sharp, who writes about wake work and like being, like she essentially is positing that we are always in the wake of this big ship, and that probably has much more than an enslavement metaphor to think about there, but working in that wake, working in, in all of the turmoil that's been kicked up, and still making things that are beautiful, still making joy. In Pittsburgh, I don't think that there is an artistic space where I don't see that happening. And what's so interesting to me is that many of those artists are also teaching artists. That is something that I think is very unique, in that, that landscape is so rich. So I'm thinking of somebody like Medina Jackson, who is a fantastic poet, and also like, I'm
from Oakland, from California.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna take it back to like Angel Eye days. I don't know how much of this she does anymore, but that woman can rap. Okay, I'm talking about like.
I remember when I first came back.
Yes. I love that. I remember just being like, I couldn't wait to see her big red afro come out on that stage. And so, here she is doing that work, but also has a positive racial identity project working out of the University of Pittsburgh. Also at the University of Pittsburgh, I'm blanking on her last name, but her first name is Kaya. She runs the Center for Race and Social Problems, and is also an amazing dancer. Right. Yeah. Like, was in the Black Panther movie. Yeah. Discovering that these women in academia here have these like robust artistry backgrounds. Of course, we know Dr. Ross here does too.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So that is one of the ways that I see that being really rich.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that something that concerns me is that people often want to translate that into one real reductive question. And that reductive question becomes, do you need to leave Pittsburgh?
Ooh.
That is
all the time.
that is, it's like, are we having chicken for dinner? My friend Damon Young characterizes it that way. Like, that's how much people think about it and how normal it is to be constantly thinking about leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's something about that being such a normal question that is unsettling, right?
Yeah.
Because you're constantly thinking about whether to uproot, to,
Mm-hmm.
whatever extent, you need to do that. I think it also, it, sort of can keep you from thinking about what's more important, which is your growth.
Mm-hmm.
So if you allow people to put you in a space where you're constantly thinking about, ooh, I'm
Gotta get out of here.
right. My daughter, one of my daughters is an actress, right? And I think a lot of the question for her is always, ooh, am I going to New York or LA? Right? Rather than what am I building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do I need to grow? Where does my artistry need nourishing? Right? Instead
Mm-hmm.
of asking
Yeah.
those questions, she's constantly asking questions about where to be. And that
Mm-hmm.
that shifts the conversation once again from thriving to surviving.
Yep.
It's not enough. It's not
Yeah.
enough. And I think, the real plot twist that, I worry about for people who get into a space where that is the only question they're asking is, so let's say you go and you find a little bit of Pittsburgh anywhere you go in the United States. Now what? Now what?
This is literally my why for, part of my why for coming back to Pittsburgh. So I was that girl, right? When I was 17 and left Pittsburgh for NYU, it was because my entire high school life I was dreaming of getting out of Pittsburgh. In fact, my father moved to California when I was about 14, and I would go back and forth, and I was trying to figure out how can I go to the Orange County School for the Arts, which was one of the better performing arts high schools in the country, because I wanted to get out of Pittsburgh so bad.
Yeah.
And then I went to NYU, and I was in New York, and I lived in LA briefly, and I had a great career and great things happened for me. But then I started coming home again, and I'm like, Pittsburgh is not Brooklyn, it's not LA, but there's something different about it. And I said, there's some amazing Black women here. Maybe I could live here again, And, just so happened two of my best friends moved back, and I moved back, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, the city feels better, but Black women still don't feel like this is for them. I said, now I thought I was coming so that I could become a full-time artist, but what happened is I started doing cultural work and cultural organizing so that other Black women and other young people can say, if I want to be an artist and cultural worker, I don't have to leave the city. So that's all the things that I've been doing in the community in the Hill District. The Black Teaching Artists in Residence program that we run with Act 3 is about like, hey, y'all, if you want to leave here, I totally understand. I did it myself, but you should not have to.
Mm-hmm.
And that, developing your creative practice and all that stuff. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I'm not saying it can happen in New York and LA, but you are more than likely going to spend the first 5 years just trying to figure out how to eat.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do here? And how can I help create the ecosystem and the conditions by which you can do that and not feel like you're, this unprecedented oppression, because it does feel like that in many ways. But to Dr. Walker's point, you will find a little bit of Pittsburgh everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere you go.
Absolutely. We have the same thing here in Houston. We lose so many young people who feel like they can't be free here, whether that's because they're trying to help bring about political change, their art, that they're queer, all the things, right? And then watching the gradual return, where people are like, I want to be home. I need to be home. My support system is home. How can I actually do what I'm called to do the work I'm called to do here. And so many of us who are trying to figure out how do we help create those spaces now so people don't have to leave home, but they can find places to be free and to help bring freedom right where they are. Yeah.
Mhm. I also have I'm gonna say she's my friend now. She was a student here who decided to pursue a PhD much later in life. So she had retired from her career as a teacher and said, I still want to do this because I love learning. She wrote a dissertation on the power of travel for Black women. And I just remember, like, I would read parts of her literature review and be like, oh, yeah, also, there's nothing to say that, you are stuck in any
Right.
particular location. And, what's fascinating about that to me was I remember kind of thinking about that and remembering how much I love to travel too. And I opened my passport, and like right in there is a quote from Anna Julia Cooper. Like I was just like, not a voice from the South, like being in the passport. Like
Right.
I was just like, I had never noticed that. Like, who reads the quotes in the passport? The nerds.
Right.
But yeah, just the place where that met, where I was like, oh, you indeed. Maybe this comes out of Christian tradition too. I don't know, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it because I know it from Dr. Maya Angelou. But the point where you realize all God's children need traveling shoes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
You don't have to tell us, because I mean, almost every coin I spent
It's on travel.
has been on travel, and
Mhm.
and Kelly can attest to this as well.
Mhm.
That's enough. Anyway, I won't go. I won't go down that. I can go down a deep dive about everything that you have to say. Kelly, did you have something before I ask another question, a personal question?
No, go for it.
Okay. So I want to go back a little bit to the community engagement program. For the first time of several years, I went back to the kind of alumni, start of the year program that the program does every year, where they bring together all the new students and the former students in our program. So Dr. Walker is the department chair of the Department of Community Engagement and Leadership, I believe it's called now.
Yes.
And I am from the inaugural cohort. I was the first grad assistant for that program. And so, that program means a lot to me, even though I went through so much mentally, physically, spiritually in that program. Spaces that really weren't meant for us, but a space that Black women have been overrepresented, right?
Yes.
Not by the institutional design, but by our own commitments to justice
right.
and community and intellectual rigor. Black women have been overrepresented in the cohorts. Black women have overrepresented in the people who have been finishing.
Awesome.
And now we've got a chair of the department. So what does it mean to you to be leading the program, knowing the role that Black women have played in shaping the ethos of the first cohort and beyond? And also, once again, calling out Dr. T, who framed a lot of that initial program, through her own work.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it is such a place of honor. I feel like a steward. I feel a sense of righteous responsibility. That like there's something about it that is very much a calling. And I don't think that I had truly processed it until that residency also, where not only was I looking, and I said, well, we need a Heavenly Seven panel because, I need everybody to know about these women and the fascinating way that y'all built community inside a program for community engagement where, let's be honest, there wasn't a whole lot of that happening. I think that there was a lot of ideals and notions around outreach, but the idea that community engagement really moves people to a place of empowerment, I don't necessarily know that was something that would have been central to the curriculum here without the Heavenly Seven.
Yeah.
Mm.
I also realized at the residency, like I looked around, the team of people who helped me put it together were mostly Black women. You know, and this is after, you know, reaching out to many people to say, hey, you know, do you want to be part of this? Knowing for sure that I wasn't going to do that thing where I pretended I could put the whole thing together myself.
Right.
And
Ashe,
then,
amen.
and then looking around the entire room and being like, there are more Black women earning a
Yep.
PhD here in this space than I have ever seen in a given space. And I thought about that. Was like, well, hold on, right? You know, like maybe you've only been in certain spaces. No, no, no. Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
Right? Like I've been, you know, to a bunch of different kind of institutions. And no, I had never seen anything like this. So from people who were just starting out to people who were writing dissertations to alums like the Heavenly Seven, this program has a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to take care of that legacy and think about what it should look like in the next 10 years means the world to me. I you know, there are days where I'm like, yeah, I could sit here and do just the paper pushing administrative stuff.
And they would leave you alone.
Right. Or I could think bigger. You know, like I'm thinking, what does this program look like as an international program? What does it look like for us to do more study abroad work? What does it look like for us to create bodies of work like a podcast or an anthology? You know, what does it look like for us to grow into something bigger on both the academic side and the you know, sort of more practical community outreach side? And so having Heather, Dr. Star Fiedler, who held it down as chair for so many years here, be able to do the now what is the Center for Civic and Community Engagement, where, you know, she might have an idea like, you know, she might say, this problem with people cutting SNAP benefits, we're going to do something about this, right? Knowing that that work is still going on and being able to say that Black and brown women being really central to how we plan for a future.
Yeah.
It's amazing, right? Like I also am like, I bring with me every day to work, right? An energy that I have to make sure I protect too.
Yeah.
You know, I have to remind myself in some of these spaces that like there's some part of me that feels like we are here because y'all didn't want somebody who looked like me running the country. And I don't know about running this department. You know, like I don't know. I think I'm gonna be really careful. So there's a balance that I have to maintain too, where I'm like, the institution cannot love you. I learned that from Dr. Tressie McMillan Kodum.
Yes.
Once I
No, I
learned
love her.
that, it really set me free. And so I think about the relationships that have been built in this department more than I think about Point Park as an institution, and keeping those relationships alive and making sure, you know, the people who are getting doctoral degrees now know the people who came before them and know what your expertise is. And, you know, those are the things that I think are truly important.
Yeah. And you know, what's interesting, you know, when I first came to Point Park, Dr. Fiedler wasn't even supposed to be the chair. She was interim chair while they were trying to figure out. Dr. Karen S. McIntyre, who's now in the School of Education, was actually, it was, I mean, when I talk about we were in limbo, when I started the program, they were, when I say building the plane as you fly it.
Yes.
And so I remember like being in there like, okay, I've been talking about getting a doctorate. Kelly, how long have I been talking about getting a doctorate degree? And here I am in this program. And not only am I supposed to be studying, I'm helping to build the plane.
To make it. Mm-hmm.
I'm writing handbooks.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to be honest about the part I played in that. I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing, but they didn't either.
Right.
Dr. Feeler was, kind of thrust into a whole new world. She was still in the School of Communications full time. Mm-hmm. And so, I am proud of our cohort, but I'm also proud of myself for coming through that and the way that I came through that. Despite the difficulties and challenges I had, I learned so much. And when it was time for me to become a professor in 2019, which I also have to shout out Paige Bill, who's a professor in the School of Business with Dr. Walker. Paige Bill, who is a white queer woman who took me under her wing and said, I don't know what they're talking about, but you got it.
Yes.
But the combination of that and just kind of like trial by fire, learning as I was going, and Dr. T kind of holding my hand, and Dr. Matthew. When I was my first year of teaching at Point Park, students were already nominating me for like one of their favorite professors, and I'm like, I'm not eligible for this. You know that, right? And listen, I'm not saying I was like the bomb.com and that I didn't have places to learn.
But you were, yeah.
But I like that program really helped me cut my teeth in so many ways, and so I'm extremely grateful for my time at Point Park in that program.
Mm-hmm. Because of the people and the experience, right? Yeah. I will say one of the things that I know she always says about founding this program and being the first chair of it. Heather is always reminding people that she built this with the first cohort, and she talks about your work. She will talk specifically about going to the Hill to meet with Trisha Gadsden, Dr. Trisha Gadsden, and Dr. Gadsden being like, no, we're not doing it like that.
She would let her.
I wasn't there, but I know about it because because Dr. Fiedler makes sure that she talks about that, and I think interestingly, I have people ask me all the time, what does allyship look like? I think that there's always that place to grow for them as well. But being able to say, I did none of this by myself. There were no bootstraps to pull. It's such an important component.
I appreciate that about her for sure. And Dr. Gadsden, we must call her by name. Dr. Gadsden was the OG of our cohort in the sense that she had, she was married with 2 grown kids. One was about to get married. One was about to graduate from college. She didn't have time. She didn't suffer any fools. And if there was something, I would say the thing, but me saying the thing and Dr. Gadsden saying this thing is very different because it's like, oh, Dr. Gadsden has spoken, right? Even before she was Dr. Gadsden. And so I just started giggling because I was in those rooms sometimes when she would be in there with Dr. Fiedler. She was never disrespectful of the position, but she told her what time it was at all times.
It sounds like the woman you were talking about in church in Brooklyn, right?
Sherry Wiley, my great aunt.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
This sounds like a conference presentation in that you're not an HBCU, right? But there's something that is happening there that other PWIs could be learning from. This sounds interesting.
It's interesting you say that because I won't call her by name, but there's a woman who's at Pitt now, but used to be a Duquesne that I think has some words to say about our program because it's at Point Park, right? And Point Park is not an R1 like a Pitt or something like that. So like, I think people question like the validity or rigor of our program initially, right? But like you will know you by your fruits. The people who have completed this program, these are top level people. And it reminds me of HBCUs where like with fewer resources, with, we don't have as many Fields Medal winners and Nobel winners and all the other stuff, but the people that they turn out, right? I think this program is an example of that as well. Sure. Like on a scrappy budget, Dr. Walker ain't got money to buy us a bucket of chicken, but she's making it work, right? At that program. So I think that's a great idea, Kelly.
Awesome. Cool beans. What feel like our takeaways, Kim?
I know we could be talking for about 4 hours.
Yes, this is good stuff.
I have a random
Oh,
thought.
yeah, please do. Please
This
share.
is totally just because I am like a person aware of our backgrounds,
Mhm.
you know, and I mean like our physical real backgrounds. So I'm looking behind
Mhm.
me at this like bottle of Lysol wipes, right? And I'm like, how strange is it for me to have this bookshelf full of amazing writers and you know, so such an army of knowledge. And then somewhere tucked in there is a company that tried to tell us we were filthy and that we needed to somehow fix ourselves. But there's also something poetic about that for me that I'm like, this is the fixing. This
Mm.
right here,
Mm.
you know, us being able to
Amen.
come together. So it's such a weird thing to have on my mind, but I keep looking at that in my background and thinking about it. And yes, thanks for my random thought.
No, appreciate the random thought. And actually, before I give my key takeaways, I'm wondering, is there anything that you want to ask us
Yeah.
Ooh,
before we go?
yes. So I would love to know who are some of your favorite, so to speak, womanist theorists. Like if you had to tell somebody, this is where you start when you are thinking about womanism, especially you know in this 21st century reality we live in. Who would you tell them to start with?
Mm. Well, we have to have them start with Alice Walker. I think it's important to honor what she was trying to help us explore. I think we would think about Patricia Hill Collins. I'm thinking right now of our new ancestor, Assata Shakur.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a lot about the Black women of the Civil Rights Movement in particular and how they really stepped into the public discourse to say it wasn't just men who were leading this work. So I'm thinking about a couple of them. I'm gonna let the academic add.
I was gonna say Fannie Lou Hamer, we speak your
Yeah.
name. Ella Baker, we speak your name. Septima Clark, we speak your name. Sorry, go
Yes,
ahead.
no, absolutely.
Septima
Um,
Clark for sure, right? Yeah.
yeah, there are just so many of our ancestors and elders who were going to make sure that their voice was inserted into the public discourse. In particular, what is her name? Kendra Dolores. What is her name? Why can't I think of her name? Katie Cannon. Okay, think of
Miss Dorothy Height,
Dorothy
who
Height.
it was in Dr. Walker's text that reminded me that she graduated from high school near here in Pittsburgh, but also went to NYU. So we have several connection points between Dorothy Wright. And I remember when a Black woman from the church took me to the Negro Council of Women Convention in Ohio and had me working a table. And I was like, where am I? Who are all these Black ladies? When I was in middle school. So shout out to Dr. Dorothy Height.
yes. Any other Dr. Ross you want to lift up?
I can list an array of thinkers over the course of many years. I could also recommend some texts like Some of Us Are Brave,
Yes.
Black Women Studies. Then there's another take of it. Still Brave?
Mhm.
The Evolution of Black Women Studies.
Oh, I would love to read
Beverly
that.
Gosh Sheftal.
Okay.
Well, I got it for you. But Dr. Beverly Gosh Sheftal is actually obviously one of them. She's
Awesome.
from Spelman. But I want to talk about some of my contemporaries, including like Brittany Cooper.
Yes.
And what was the name of that collective?
The
Y'all know what I'm
Crunk
talking
Feminist
about. The
Collective.
Crunk Feminist Collective. And then there's also a text by somebody else in the Crunk Feminist Collective about Octavia Butler's life that I'm reading right now.
Okay.
Her name escapes me, but I talked about it. It's in our book list from last episode.
Okay.
So I'll bring it into the show notes. As Dr. Walker called, the person I follow faithfully on IG is Dr. Tressie McMillan Cottom.
Yes.
I love her brain. I really love her brain. And I love that she really is charting her own course in the way she talks about this stuff. She doesn't necessarily walk around calling herself a womanist theorist or anything like that. She's a textbook sociologist in the best kind of way. And she's a woman of the South, and she talks about herself as a woman of the South. And she has such an interesting critique of the Black bourgeoisie that she lives every day. So I love her.
And we'll link these in the show notes to our bookshop, but I also want to lift up Libby and your public library, especially right now, requesting these books if your library doesn't have it. We want to make sure that we are doing the work to preserve our Black literature right now.
Mm-hmm. And I also will call out some of our guests, like Ebony Janice, who has written some wonderful, wonderful work. Her book that we talked about, I think, was the womanist phase.
Fourth wave
feminism. I'm just having a brain freeze right now, but love her work. Love Cole Arthur Riley.
Yes. Black liturgies.
Black liturgies.
And just the way she, again, from Pittsburgh.
Reverend Dr. Vanessa Monroe. And Allison Geist Johnson, her writing collaborator, who came out of Katie Cannon's lineage. So yeah, there's a bunch that we are being grateful and very blessed to have on the podcast as well.
And I think some of my bibliography and my dissertation and some of my other feminist and womanist loves are included in one of our books. We have a bookshop store, and so we will link that again in the show notes. But there are so many and too many to name, and I'll just shout out a couple of our hip hop. I can go on forever. Joan Morgan and others like that. There's so many that I can name. I'll stop there.
Can I tell you how? Look, I went to go see Stevie Wonder in concert. Was that last year when he was in Pittsburgh? Right, he started his tour here. So I'm walking through, the hallway, getting ready to go to my seat, and I see Joan Morgan.
In Pittsburgh, I know.
Yes. And I lost my ever loving mind, y'all. Like, I was like, ah! And my husband was like, what's going on? I was like, I know you don't understand this, but she wrote a book called When Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost that changed my whole life. And then when she came closer to me, I said, I am not going to fangirl right now, but it's so nice to see you.
I'm gonna.
Yeah. She and her friends heard and stopped her and told her, what I had said. And she came back around and was like, come here, sis. It was all love. Like, she gave me a big hug, and I was just like, I can't believe I get to meet you. And of all places, like at a Stevie Wonder concert,
Yeah, how random. Yeah. I didn't go to that one, and I won't tell you why, but I was upset. But I did go when he came 10 years before. Also want to shout out Disha again. You mentioned her, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies, who also was a reader on my dissertation. I said, listen, Disha, I got a couple of chapters. I just need your eye. And she sent it back like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. like, you know what I mean? So I just appreciate, I loved her writing voice, and I wanted to hear what she had to say. Yeah. And she said, I don't know what you want me to tell you, which was all the praise I needed at the time. She had a couple of notes, but that felt good.
I love that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I've been thinking about a womanism elective, and also thinking about how to have that become more than an elective. As womanism is such a central part of how community engagement works, and so it was just
holla at your girl when you're ready when you're looking for. That might be when I might come out of retirement.
Will do.
I mean, I don't know. If you wanted to teach it, we could co-teach it.
I would much rather put it in motion, and not try to focus all of the energy here. I think that the students deserve to hear from more than just me. Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I wouldn't say she considered herself a womanist. I don't know if she considers herself anything like that, but I really am enjoying the work that Karen Hunter is doing with Nubia and narrative with Dr. Greg Carr, which they've created what they call jailbreaking the academia, and they have a online community where Dr. Carr teaches Africana studies every week, but Karen Hunter is a well-known journalist from New Jersey, But she worked for the New York Daily News and all these publications, became a professor at Hunter College, I believe. And now she is doing a lot on Sirius Radio and her own local radio show, but she's doing a lot of great work online. And so we shared that last show notes, but we will share it again. I wanted to shout out Karen Hunter for the work she's doing as well.
Mhm.
And so in terms of takeaways, I just want to say, when you, Dr. Walker, were talking about your grandmother's birthday being her 100th birthday yesterday. My grandmother turned 100 last year, but when she was 96, I defended my dissertation, and she was because of the pandemic, she was able to come to my dissertation defense because we were on Zoom. And, at the beginning of my dissertation defense, I lost it because the first thing I did was call out her name, but also my grandmother who had already passed just that year in May. And at the end of my dissertation, I asked every woman to just speak names of Black women who had, in the Hill District and beyond, who had been in their lives. But at the end of my dissertation, your committee goes out into the little private room, and then they come back. And my grandmother says, and I just want to say, please give my granddaughter the job. I think she's prepared, because she know what's going on.
I love that. Give her the job.
Because at the end of the day, it comes down to getting a good job.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I just remember how it might have it was sweet, but it might have felt out of place. But talking to Dr. Walker today about how her grandmother, her mother, and actually, which I wanted to get to, we didn't get to, how her daughters, and how her nieces and her cousins and people who are like sisters to her show up in her work, is part of the work. And we always talk about how the personal is political, but the personal it goes beyond us, right? It's our community and the women who have shaped us. Mm-hmm. And so how integral that was, Black women in my family and in my life were to my academic work, and that it wasn't an aside, that it was always there. So that was my key takeaway, is that all of them, my grandmothers and my great aunt, and of course Zora Neale Hurston, who is a big influence for me, and of course Catherine Dunham, who's a big influence for me, were always there. I appreciate you for just connecting those dots for me today.
Yeah,
I love that.
My takeaways, I'm really sitting with, how strategy is framed in white spaces, but our foremothers may not have had the language, but were the most strategic in navigating to get us to freedom as they understood it, and how it is our birthright to do that for the future generation. That's really just sitting with me heavy.
I absolutely think that there is not enough credit given for the level of strategic thinking and development. I like to say making $1 out of 15 cents, right?
Yeah.
But man, yeah, thank you for naming that, because absolutely, we teach strategic leadership. Some of these things should be part of that discussion.
Yeah.
And what about you, Dr. Walker? Any takeaways from the conversation any last final thoughts you want to leave the audience and us with?
I think, one of the things that this conversation has really reminded me of is that we don't have to let go of the spiritual parts of ourselves to have a liberating joy in a space that we call womanism or Black feminism, that they still go together. And I think at least I'll speak for myself, have a tendency to, be trying to separate them. I need to figure out, what my spiritual practices are going to be, not realizing that, when I pick up All About Love, I am in a spiritual practice, and it is okay for me to pull those two together. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us.
You really just spoke to the essence of this podcast. This is our Sunday service. So I'll say an amen to that.
I'll say an amen. And I mean, yes, thank you.
I mean.
This episode concludes our conversation with Dr. Tahirah Walker. We appreciate her words of wisdom and the work that she's building. If you can believe it, we're nearing the end of season 2. Please make sure you go back and listen to any episodes you missed and share the pod with a friend. Thank you for being with us on this journey. We appreciate y'all. Take good care.